knitting friends, welcome to episode 41, I think, of Last Ditch Effort. My name is Pacasha, and this is my podcast about using up my stash. And I'm actually going to focus a bit more on that topic this year. Like, not just in, I'm not really going to be buying yarn this year, which, whatever, we can talk about it later. However, this is going to be my course correcting episode. So, or this will be the beginning of course correction for this entire podcast and my journey with my own stash. Podcast or not, I'm becoming more focused. And I know, like, when we relapse, for lack of a better term, you kind of have to recommit to something. And I'm not going to take it quite that seriously. I think it's a bit, it's like asking forgiveness, but, you know, keeping up the poor behavior that you need to be forgiven for. And while I don't need to be forgiven for buying yarn or not crafting exactly within certain parameters, it is good to reevaluate. And so from this, I don't want to say from this moment on, everything's going to be different, but I am going to be a lot more intentional with what I'm doing and with what I'm sharing with you. Specifically, it's not just going to be like, for lack of a better term, like my friend Alisha and I were just talking about this like an hour ago, and I don't want to be like stealing, oh my gosh, what did my hair just do? Stealing from that conversation I had with Alisha, because I don't want it to just be like a show and tell. I want it to be actually useful information, maybe for you, hopefully for me, because really I don't ever expect anybody to be watching these, so this is more for me recording for myself. Oh goodness, what an intro. I'm sure you are all captivated and dying to hear what I have to say. Anyway, I brought back the book. I'm not gonna give you like a whole lot of numbers or anything, like where my stash is right now. I think it's pretty accurate. I don't know. I haven't done some math in a bit, and I finished some stuff, but I did do a little bit of math, and I wanted to share. So in 2024, I started the year with some WIPs, works in progress, but not like a ton. Like I only keep, you know, a couple, 3 or 4 things tops on my needles at once. That being said, those count as a finished object, you know, in this last year. And so this last year, I finished 6,359 grams out of my stash total. That should be fairly accurate. And probably a pretty good average of what I would knit in a year. So a little over 6,000 grams worth of knitting every year. And that goes from lace weight to bulky. Like, it all got counted in that. So anyway, that's just a number that I wanted to share, and it's mainly so that next year at this time I can look back and say, let's see if we're on track, or not really. I don't care if I keep up. It's just nice to know. It's a good metric. So I guess let's start with what I'm wearing. This is the Rochambeau cowl by Carina Spencer, I think. Could be wrong. And it's made out of orange flower yarn that I got in like it was like just some random bag of 3 unmarked skeins that they were clearing out, you know. Anyway, it's really pretty. So Rochambeau, it's just like it works like a triangular shawl, but it's connected so it fits like a cowl. And then this sweater, I don't remember because I'm a bad podcaster. Swirled Pentagon pullover, Pentagon Swirled pullover by Norah Gaughan from Knitting Nature. and it's Cascade 220. This is all fresh on my mind right now because I just had a really long conversation with my other knitting and podcasting friend, Alisha. And this sweater is a good example of that. Like, there is a little bit of pilling, but not much. I have worn this, I mean, I want to say I made it almost 10 years ago, if not even older. I don't know, something close to 10 years ago. And once upon a time, this and one other sweater were the only sweaters I had. And so it has gotten a ton of wear. And it looks really good still. Like, I think it looks fantastic. I know probably Cascade 220 doesn't have, it's a workhorse yarn. It may not be like the most, I don't know. It may not have the reputation that I find it to have. I think it's a fantastic yarn that has held up over time. And this is actually going to be more my focus moving forward with my crafting, with what I'm sharing with you, and why I'm sharing it with you. The why is going to be the main question here. What works best for what? And in my opinion, why I believe certain things work best for other things. You know what I'm trying to say. Anyway, so I just wanted to give a shout out to Cascade 220 for being an awesome yarn that still looks good, even after I've worn it a 100 bajillion times. And I think this pattern is awesome. I think the original pattern has like a turtleneck that you pick up and you do a turtleneck. I obviously did not do that. And while I'm wearing this today, I mean, it's a perfectly, I think, nice looking neckline when it doesn't have a weird t-shirt poking out. But it's just a good little sweater. Like, the pattern's great. The yarn is great. I like this. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about more like successful projects and why they're successful to me in upcoming episodes. And so I thought this was a really fitting project to share with you. And it just happens to be what I wore today. Okay, that's what I'm wearing. Let's do works in progress, shall we? No, let's do finished objects. So the first thing I want to share is just right here. And I can't wear it because I'm a dork that wore my hair like this, but I made the Yol Moorie beret by Gudrun Johnston. Isn't that gorgeous? This is her holiday hat kit from this year, 2020. I guess that they're counting it the 2025. Anyway, it's the most recent holiday kit, and it uses Jamieson's of Shetland, and the colors are Old Rose, Old Gold, Grouse, Buttermilk, and the light pink here is Dog Rose. I'll get it up closer. And I really focused on keeping my main color and contrasting color in the appropriate yarn dominance position. I took a class with Gudrun last month in Santa Fe, and typically I don't find that my color work is like uneven and weird, which we'll get to that in a minute. But I thought, this is a technique that's important for some people in some instances. I'm going to, put more effort into it and see if it makes a big difference. And while I don't know that this is smoother or anything stands out necessarily better than before, it just felt like nice to be consistent with something and to actually put thought into it. However, I did sacrifice a bit on gauge. Like, to me, my gauge felt a little bit looser. So I think I am starting to realize that I need to just knit a little tighter. Like, this is a fine fabric. It's nice and it's fine, but I think it needs to be a little firmer. Just a bit, just a tiny bit. I think my stitches will well, not suffer. Like, do I do this? Oh, I hope that's the thumbnail. I don't know how to wear a beret with these. You can't really. That's funny. Anyway, I made this and it's beautiful and I'm super proud of it. I love Shetland wool. I love Shetland wool used for color work. It's perfect for that purpose. And that kit, so it came with like, I think five or six balls of Jamieson, of Shetlands. And there was quite a bit left over, which also that's a plus on that kind of yarn. It really, like, if you're doing color work, your yarn can really stretch. Like, just using little bits here and there enriches the design, and it makes it, I don't want to say it's an affordable knit, but there's a lot of value in using that kind of yarn with that type of knitting. The yarn really goes far, and you can use it in multiple projects. You have lots left over because you're only using a little bit. However, it's still making a double fabric that is super warm, and suitable for that climate in Shetland and also here. So anyway, so I had lots of leftovers. The only one that I didn't have a ton of left over was this grouse color. Isn't that pretty? And I want to use this as like pretty much my main color for my next color work project, which is the Aert Mitts by Gudrun Johnston. She just released this pattern last month. And so I'm making matching mitts to match my beret. So in that class, I used a lot of this color from this kit to do my swatch, whatever. So I decided that for the main color, like the ribbing on that, I'm going to use this color instead and use this up in the color work section. So this will be my main color. This is birch, and so the grouse will just be in the whatever. Anyway, just it's similar enough that it will be a coordinating set. Yeah, and be another successful project. So looking forward to that. And these colors are just fantastic. But I will be possibly, I usually have to go down a size or two knitting needle. I may go down another one. So I just want to make things tighter, and I want to make a fabric that is a lot more durable. Not that it's going to get a ton of wear because I've got 100 hats. Like, it's never going to wear out, but I want it to be a nice classic fabric that, say somebody down the road 50 years from now, they're like, wow, my great grandma Pacasha knit this and it still looks great. That'd be cool. Probably won't happen, but I mean, if it could, then why not put that extra effort into it? Okay, so let's do the next, since we already talked about a project that I haven't even started. What's my next finished thing? These are all whips. So I wanted to do a super quickie project. I'll elaborate on that later. So I had a couple, or three actually, 300 grams of Knitpicks Tuff Puff in pomegranate. And I wanted to whip up just a quick little, I'm going to put this on top of this one, little cowl. This is the Beneath the Pines cowl by Kalurah. I forgot Kalurah's last name. I'm sorry. I'll have it listed below. Yeah, so it's a super like chunky yarn and this nice little lace pattern with, that's like the pine tree right there. And it makes me feel like I'm a borrower wearing knitwear like made from weird proportioned sewing thread or something. I don't know. It's cool. It's fun. It's cool. It was fun to knit. The pattern was great. This yarn's fun. It's great. It is not the softest. If you're prone to, if you don't like itchy wool, this one may not be your favorite. It's not super itchy, but I can feel it, and I'm not particularly sensitive to that. I don't really care. It's also a singles yarn. And so as part of me wanting to talk more about intentional knitting, bulky singles yarn is not a durable yarn. This is going to pill. I have worn it a bunch, but I do foresee it not looking great for very long. So to me, this is probably not something that I will continue to make in the future. It was fun, but I think my days of doing this sort of thing are over for now. Because I really do want to focus on making quality things with my time, which to me is super valuable because that's all I have in this life is my time. And it's limited. And also just resources on this planet are limited. Do we really need... Okay. I could go off forever. But anyway, it was fun to knit. It was great. If you need something fast or, I don't know, you have some super chunky stuff that you've spun up or anything, Kalurah, what is her last name? Kalurah makes great patterns. Yeah, and it was fun to knit, and it's beautiful. I love it. So I'm getting a whole bunch of text right now. I'm trying not to read them and be distracted. So it's great. However, I'm not going to consider this 100% successful project because in 50 years, nobody's going to be wearing this still and saying it looks great. But it was fun to knit. Okay, my next FO, I have been working on a half and half triangles wrap. Purl Soho released the pattern. I think Jake Canton was the designer. The yarn I used was Purl Soho's linen quill. This color is twig brown, and I decided to not finish the second half of the shawl because it is huge as it is. So typically this is 2 triangles that come together and make a square, and you do 2 different colors usually, and you fold it in half and you have like this massive shawl. It's huge, I'm telling you. I have made one before and I love it, but I never reach for it. It's not something that I go for very often, and it has nothing to do with the color. It's because it's just slightly, like when it's folded in half, it's a lot bulkier, and that makes it a little harder for me to wear. Like I'm really short. I should know better than to wear bulky things because they can overpower me, and I don't mean that in a flattering way. I just mean that in a movement sort of way. Now, linen quill has linen mixed with some, I think it's merino. It's not a bulky yarn. There's actually a lot of fluid drape to it. And the wool, I mean, this yarn, dare I say, it has like a cool quality to it. It's lovely and drapey, but even so, it was bulky when it's doubled up. So also, if I remember correctly, the first time I did this shawl, the first triangle took a lot more, the second triangle, the second half of it took a lot more yarn than the first half. So this used almost a full 300 grams, which I had 300 grams of both colors allotted for this shawl. And I was a bit fearful that the second half, since it used a bit more, that possibly I wouldn't have enough yarn to finish. I mean, it's like not a lot more, but I think if I remember correctly, it used a bit more. So I just kind of played it safe, and I went with practicality over following the pattern exactly. And I just crocheted. I don't really know how to crochet, so I can't really tell you what I did, but I just crocheted the top and made it kind of stretchy, or loose at least, so it lies nicely. And I've been sick quite a bit the last few weeks, and this has been like a constant. Like I wore it like 3 days in a row, and I wear it like just wear my normal clothes, and then I'll wear it like an old-fashioned triangle shawl, but it's so big, and I've got a fairly big circumference about me, but I cross it over and then I tie it in the back, much like a Civil War era. They were called Sontags, and they were just shawls that just like tied. They kind of cross in the bust, and they tie behind you. They're super comfortable. It stays on while you're moving your arms. You don't have ends flopping around because they're secure in the back. The, the tails don't flop into the toilet because it's just enough to tie when you sit down. That sounds awful, but these are practical things that I think about. And also, since it crosses in the front and it's like a double fabric, say somebody comes to the door and I'm not wearing a certain undergarment, it's not noticeable. So yeah, I love it. It's fantastic. And I've probably already, since I finished this, I have used it way more than I've used my other one that was a full half and half triangles wrap. So that to me is successful. This yarn does not pill. It's amazing yarn. I love Purl Soho linen quill. It's a super, I think, a high quality yarn, and it feels so good. And the colors are gorgeous. And I will be doing this again for sure. Like, I need a lot of knitting projects because I use knitting. It helps me with like social anxiety a bit. So I like having plain projects. And usually that means like a plain sock. And I have a lot of socks. I've made a lot of socks for other people. I like doing them still, but I don't always just want to be knitting a sock. Plus you run into the whole heel or ribbing or, you know, the decreases, the gusset, whatever, where you have to concentrate. And this, you just don't. You just go and you can do it in the dark, and it's, to me, it's easy and practical. And while I don't need 100 shawls, this took long enough to offset, like, I mean, this was like 4 pairs of socks. I don't need 4 pairs of socks, but I can use a shawl. And so to me, it's a more practical way to spend my knitting time. And yeah, definitely a success and something I will continue making. Now, another successful pattern that I worked on is Isolde Teague's letterpress hat. This is part of her Knitworthy collection this year. It's Knitworthy 8. I haven't woven in the end yet. I'll talk about that in a second. But this yarn is Knitpicks Wool of the Andes Tweed, and the color is Otter Heather, I believe, or otter of some sort. It's got great texture. It's kind of hard to tell with this lighting. It is easier to see in real life. Normally with textured patterns, the plainer the yarn, the better. But I really think this tweedy yarn really adds to it. But it's got like a nice cable. It's got some like moss stitch or seed stitch, whatever you want to call it. It's got a slip stitch column. It's a really pretty nice hat. It fits really well. I wore these, so I can't really model it. God, that one keeps falling down. Anyway, I'll fix that in a second. It has a nice long ribbed brim, and I wasn't sure if we were, Mark and I, this is for, I haven't decided who it's for, but it could be for Mark, it could be for me, but I wasn't really sure if it was going to be worn as just like a slouchy beanie, or if we were going to turn up the brim and wear it so it's super warm around your ears, which I consider an important feature in a hat. I know a lot of other people don't like to cover their ears, but Mark walks outside like to work quite often and his ears are really sensitive. So I think this is good for that sort of thing. So that's why I didn't weave in the tail, because I wanted to try it on and see like who it was going for, how it was going to be worn before I either wove it in on the wrong side or the right side, so that you can't see it. And it hasn't been blocked yet, but it kind of doesn't need it. Like, I feel like it looks great, and it looks even better on. I know this isn't the best example for that, but I am super pleased with this. And I know Wool of the Andes does pill a little bit, but I think for a hat, it's not going to get the wear and tear that like underneath your arm would. So I am definitely pleased with this project. And Isolde Teague writes fantastic patterns. She has really versatile sizing. She also does like large print things for like low visibility. I don't know how to explain it. Yeah, just her patterns are really accessible for a lot of different people. Yeah, and I know like, I mean, I'm not wearing my glasses now because I've got the ring light on, but I certainly appreciate large print patterns. Yeah. So that's another successful project, I feel. Now, maybe not so successful. Now this is, I'm considering it finished, although technically it's not. That's okay. I have been working on the sea glass cardigan for a while. I made the sea glass pullover this summer, and while I did enjoy it, the appeal of it was using up scraps. And that was the main reason why I chose to do the pullover in the first place and then to continue on with the cardigan. Now, I didn't get a chance to wear the pullover before I started the cardigan because it's a very warm garment, and it's just been a bit warm here, so it just hasn't been cold enough to wear it. I started this cardigan. I wanted to make it looser fitting, so a lot more positive ease. And I knew I would have to adjust like the arms and the fit through here a bit just because of my shape, because I do have larger arms and not narrow shoulders, because my arms do kind of come out. Like I'm pretty sizable through this area, but it's kind of hard for me to find things that fit well. So I worked on various things to make that fit, and I think it's okay. This pattern like promotes itself as being a way to steek without it being really a steek. And there's a lot of talk about magic knots. They do. Wool and Pine is the company that does it, or the designer, whatever. Let's just say, like, one of the features they talk about is it's an easy way to steek. You can use magic knots, or you can weave in the ends, and you're changing colors, 2 colors every row, typically. So that's a lot of ends to weave in. And so I just kind of went with magic knots, and then doing their new steek innovation that they're doing, because I wanted to try it. And I should have known better, because for the most part my leftover yarns in fingering weight, which is what Wool and Pine talks about a lot, is that you can use like sock leftovers. Superwash is very slippery. I've had some knots fail, and I am not happy about that. I am going to have to go through and fray check every knot, which I should have done before I even like touched this thing, because every time I touch this it feels like more and more knots are failing. And I'm talking about along the steek, which can get closed up, sewn up, covered with a ribbon, and hidden. That's fine. But now I'm worried about my magic knots under my arm, which can't be hidden, and I probably should have woven them in. However, if you are changing your yarn, 2 yarns every row, I don't mind weaving in ends if that's the thing. However, it's going to be very bulky and uncomfortable, in my opinion. This was, I will just say, this is not a successful project to me, and I'm very disappointed that I spent the time doing this. And that really sucks because I think it's beautiful. Like, you see it on people and their project pages, and it looks great, but it's just one of those things that it looks great, and in theory it would be fantastic, but in practicality, like, in my life, this is not going to be a fantastic project. So, I mean, I used gorgeous yarns. I love them. I think that part I'm super pleased with. It hasn't been blocked yet because I'm so afraid to get it wet. My arm shaping is like, essentially, I didn't like decrease much because my arms are so big. I just did it kind of like the pullover version where you just knit like a tube and then decrease quickly and do the ribbing. I did it kind of like that, a few decreases, but not many. I have to be very careful with this. I'm super nervous. So I'll show you the front. So, like, well, it's hard to see. It's got this shawl collar, which I'm a fan of, and I'll probably do like a shawl stick or something to keep it closed. It looks great. And if you can get their little faux steek to work, that looks great too. But see this? That's not supposed to happen. That's not just ends of knots. That is the knots coming apart. I'm just so afraid that I'm going to wear this once and it's going to fall apart. And I put a lot of time into it. So I'm frustrated at myself for choosing this project to make with my scraps, because I love my scraps. Like, that's my favorite thing to do, is make things out of leftovers, like seemingly out of nothing. That's like magic to me, and make it something beautiful and usable. It's my favorite thing to do, and this, I feel like, used a lot of things in a not the best way. I'm not going to fault wool and pine. I'm not going to fault my yarn. I'm not even really going to fault my knotting abilities. I'm just going to fault my decision to even just do this. I should have just done something else. Like, I shouldn't have done it. And I hadn't worn the pullover, so that's another thing. There's a lot of like magic knots, and they're not the most comfortable thing to rub up against your skin. Those knots, like, anyway. It's done. I will do some more finishing work. It'll probably take another couple of hours to finish this in a way that I feel comfortable actually soaking and blocking it properly. And hopefully it'll be sturdy enough that I can actually wear it. I have had a knot fail on the sleeve. Like, I've had knots fail through here, through the steek. And I'm not so much worried about that. Like, I feel like Alisha offered, you know, to help me, like, tack it down with a sewing machine even. And that's fine. Like, whatever. Even in the pattern, it mentions that. Like, I can't fault the pattern. Like, this is all my decisions and me making not the best decisions for what I like. Yeah, but, like, I had a knot fail right here because you change, that's where your color change is. And this gets a lot of wear, so if something's wearing on those knots, they're going to come apart. And I had to retie a knot using pliers, like needle nose pliers. If I have to do that with every row, I'm a big fan of wearing things for, you know, for a long time. Like, I'm not, it's just not going to be a durable garment, and that breaks my heart a little bit. But then again, I may do all of these like tips and tricks and it'll be perfect and last forever, and in 50 years somebody will say something. So I'm trying not to worry too much about it. You know, whatever, move on, do the next thing. It's fine. I am really taking my time with this, aren't I? So let's go on to works in progress. Those are all my finished objects. Let's move on. So finishing that, I knew I wanted another garment, and as I said, I think last time I was talking about this book that I got, Grand Shetland Adventure Knits, and I talked about wanting to do the Riggies cardigan, which is by Gudrun Johnston. I am a fan. And so it's like this big oversized garter stitch cardigan. Super excited to work on that. And so I cast it on, and I'm in the middle of a row because why not? And this is as far as I am. That's it. I'm serious. Like, I have barely started this thing. I am using Premier Yarns Stitch Please. This is a super affordable yarn, like crazy inexpensive. It is 100% wool. It comes in so many beautiful colors, like, oh, that color. This is Holly Jolly. I'm not sure of the durability of this. I haven't used it for anything. I bought it because the price is great. It's a great, like, normal, regular price yarn, and I got it at, sorry, that's how many I'm using. It's a great normal price yarn, but I got it like almost, I think it was like 40% off or something. So I thought I would have to try it. That didn't mean I had to buy 4 sweaters quantities. I could have just bought like a mitten. I did actually. My first order was just like 2 skeins to see how it would work. And then before I tried it out, I ordered 4 sweaters quantities worth. This is the kind of thing that I do not want to continue doing. And if I can save you the heartbreak of having too much yarn and stressing, or using the wrong yarn and it falling apart or pilling, I'm going to let you know. So, oh, there's little bits. Anyway, it's a gorgeous yarn. It feels great. It feels like a Cascade or a Wool of the Andes. So I'm thinking if this project is as it should be, as I envision it, it will get a lot of wear. And so I can give you a good idea, in my opinion, how this yarn holds up over time. So that is my garment that I'm working on. Okay, I showed you the mitts. I haven't actually cast those on yet, but they'll be cast on pretty soon. The next project, okay, so I was just working on these while I was getting coffee with my friend Alisha, and I got a little too aggressive with the bag, and all of my needles broke. When I make socks, I use Knitpicks. My favorites are their little wooden DPNs. They all broke, so I have to put this on new needles. They don't usually, like, sometimes I'll have a broken one like every 2 or 3 years. This is a chart that I didn't really make it up. I saw another knitter on Instagram making some socks. This is not a good example of this, and I'll explain why. To look like candy canes, and I thought that was cute. She didn't have a pattern out, and she didn't mention that she was going to have a pattern out, so I just like zoomed in and drew up a little chart. So these are my little candy cane socks. I do have a finished sock somewhere. Anyway, I'm using Jill Draper Barstow in Cheerwine, and this white is just a BFL undyed. Sorry, I've got a loud little bell thing. Yeah, they are 2 vastly different yarns. The BFL is a very smooth yarn, as BFL is. It makes great socks, I think, BFL sock yarn. Probably not the best for color work because it's so smooth. Now the Jill Draper Barstow has like some toothiness to it, like some give to it, and give's not the right word. And it's lovely. They're not really playing together exactly how I want them to, but I don't care. I think it's still going to be really pretty, and I'm still getting text messages. Anyway, let me show you the finished one. Well, it's finished. It's not blocked. So, like, it looks like I can't do color work at all, but really it's just the nature of the yarn. And I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay with that. So when I first started this pattern, I started in magic loop because we were teaching some friends of ours how to do magic loop, and I do not typically knit with magic loop. I like DPNs for socks and small circumferences. So I have like this the horrendous magic loop, what's it called? Laddering effect, which, you know, to be fair, it usually comes out just fine after you block and wear things even just once. Even doing this helps quite a bit. But yeah, so this is the first sock. I have very small feet that like they're supposed to be like this. Like, and then I just did a regular, like you can kind of see on this part especially, just that it is wavy and uneven, which it normally is like that for me with 1x1 vertical stripes. But yeah, I don't care. They're going to be like kind of rusticy candy cane socks. That's great. That's fantastic. And I will wear them year round. I don't typically like holiday focused projects, anything really, decoration even. Like I go for seasons if I'm going to change things at all, but usually I just like the same old stuff. Like a lot of my Christmas decorations, just like turn it around on the dull side and then it's the other half of the year type thing. Yeah. So I'm about here on that second one, so we'll finish those up hopefully soon. And then I do have another pair of socks on the needles. And I just started the heel flap on this. Now this yarn is Nomadic Yarns, I don't remember. This is a self-striping. It's called Neville. She no longer dyes Harry Potter colorways, so this is not available. But she does have amazing colors. Now I find like I like her BFL base more than her other bases. I'm sure her yak base is fantastic. I think she used to have one. I don't know if she still does, but I think it's her name Ashley. Anyway, she has gorgeous colors and really like interesting color pairings. This is Neville. And these are the stripes. Now, I think these colors are a little bit close, but I kind of don't care. Like, I think that it's good. And I did like a super deep ribbed cuff. And I'll just do basic heel flap, just very basic yarn or sock, very plain. I'm doing a slip stitch heel, and I do the toe that Mina Phillip, Knitting Expat, does in like all of her sock collections, which I'm a huge fan of those sock patterns. So I'm just doing that decrease. And these are, I use 2.0 or size 0 needles because I'm a very loose knitter, and this is the only way I can even get close without destroying my hands by using 000s, which I should probably be doing, but yeah. So I think that's all of, nope, that's not. I have a lot of projects going on, and it's been 3 weeks, so I have a lot to talk about. Also, this is like, I think the 4th time I've tried to, I have recorded. Like, I have deleted whole podcasts. So I've actually finished things between. I'm a mess. So I've also been working on my daughter's Nectar blanket, which is a pattern also by Isolde Teague. I think this is from a Knitworthy collection too, maybe, of years past. So you make a bunch of these hexagons and you seam them together, and then there's like some partial bits that you add to make it completely square or rectangular or whatever, what have you. I just think that that is so pretty. And the yarn I'm using is this. It's King Cole Curiosity, and it's a DK, and it's mother of pearl. And so some of these, like, actually you can see the color changing, but it's also a long color change, so a lot of them look fairly solid. And since it's a blanket for a future college student that I won't be able to hand wash a wool blanket for, which I wouldn't do anyway, it's acrylic. I'm not a big fan of using acrylic for garments myself, or for, you know, any environmental reason you can possibly think of. I can't, I'm not a fan of acrylic. But I'm also not a large corporation who could be the one fixing a lot of these issues. So I just do the best I can. And to me, that is using something appropriate for the use, which is acrylic. And this is a pretty one. And it's going to be great. And that's it. So I think I kind of like discussed the things I needed to discuss. Yeah, so the whole course correction thing, we'll go back to that. I'm going to focus more on being efficient, and smart and intentional about my crafting materials and time and energy, and but also still be still enjoying the process. I will not be buying much yarn this year. I did buy a lot last year, and while some of that, like the Stitch Please yarn, was probably not the smartest choice for me to, you know, spend my money on, there were a lot of like I got to go to a wool festival for the first time, and I made friends, and we're all making the same thing together. That kind of stash enhancement is fine, in my opinion. But I will be focusing on the beautiful, amazing yarn and projects that I already have, like Forefront. I sat down, as I'm not like a make 9 person, and I don't make a lot of, you know, big resolutions and plans if I can help it. But I did sit down and just make a list of a bunch of projects that I want to do that I didn't even have to think about it. Like I just said, ooh, I want to make that with this yarn and this. And I already have the yarn, I already have the pattern. I'm like 100% ready to go. There's no hesitation. It's not like, yeah, I want that, but I don't want to cast on yet. No, not all of them I would cast on like in a heartbeat. I don't have the brain space to like do that, because I forget like what size I'm doing. Like no matter what notes I take, I'm going to forget like certain things, and, you know, whatever. I like to do only a few projects at once. But I still made a list, and it was still at least a year, possibly 2 years worth of knitting without, I mean, it's hardly using any of this yarn also. Like it's using stash yarn, yes, but it's not going to make a huge dent back here. And that, I think that says a lot. Not only in I don't need anything, but I just have a lot of exciting things that I want to work on, and I'm just super excited about it. So I'm trying to focus on the positive part of using the beautiful things I have in my stash versus the FOMO and look at this deal, and, you know, it's great to participate in things you're excited in and to start projects that jazz you up, but they don't always have to be the newest things. I'm getting excited about what I have, and I encourage you to do the same. So if you are working on something from stash, I know sometimes you guys let me know below, and I love that. I love hearing about it, and it always sounds like a fun project. So if you can, just like leave me a little comment below and let me know what you're working on. I'm not a big like and subscribe person, but I am like this close to having 200 subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed, I mean, it would just make my day if I pushed over 200. Like, I can't even believe that there are that many people that would even remotely watch this. I know not everybody watches all the time, but it would just like make my day if you did that. And I know we're at the end and most people click off by now, but probably clicked off in the first couple of minutes actually because I went on a rant. Anyway, I love you guys. Thank you for being here with me and for listening to me. And I hope that you got some knitting done while you listen to me jabber on about my stuff. And if you have a successful yarn project pairing, I would also like to hear about that. If you've had an unsuccessful one, that's important information, and I don't want to slag anything off, but I think it's important to know why things work and why they don't. I think it helps us all make wise decisions, and just because something doesn't work for some reason doesn't mean it's not perfect for something else. So I don't think it's negative at all. I think it's just being smart and intentional and discerning with your time and materials. So anyway, let's continue in that vein, if you will, with me. And yeah, talk to you guys soon. Love you. Bye.